Thank you, Chair Fowler and members of the Commission for allowing me to speak here today. My name is Mason Levitt, and I am testifying on behalf of Beyond Toxics, a decades-old Oregon-based environmental organization that fights for all Oregonians to have access to clean and safe air, water, and land. Our organization has worked with Soap Creek Valley and Adair Village residents for 3 years to find solutions to many of the challenges posed by this facility, and I have been there through that journey. My background is based in geographic information systems, or most commonly known as GIS, and I have been trained to map, model, and analyze spatial data. In addition to my role at Beyond Toxics, I am currently a master's student at the U of O in the Department of Geography doing this exact work. Today, I want to draw attention to the odor study, which the county has determined as grounds for denial. This is due to the fact that the applicant has used an outdated software version and did not adequately take into account elevational differences. I wish to elaborate on why this odor study is neither comprehensive nor objective. But first, I want to add some related details to the record. 1, the applicant highlighted the newly installed enclosed landfill gas flare as an important piece of infrastructure to manage landfill gas. I want to note for the record that DEQ announced the requirement of enclosing all landfill gas flares in 2022. The applicant received multiple notices and extensions to comply with this requirement and failed to do so, resulting in an enforcement notice from DEQ. It is installed now, but this process is illustrative of how laborious it is to get the applicant to comply with required operating conditions. 2, the applicant has waited until last week's hearing to announce their intentions to install fence line monitoring for odorous pollutants. Beyond Toxics and residents have been pressing for this for years now, and that technology has been available the entire time. I want to note that the applicant's odor study did not incorporate any real-time air monitoring despite the availability of that technology. Third, I want to problematize the applicant's claim that they found 99% of odor complaints to be impossible, despite acknowledging they were working with an incomplete data set that does not have the time or location of odor detection. It is worth elaborating on this. How can we know that someone didn't smell the landfill because the wind was blowing the opposite direction of their location if we do not know their location or the time of day and consequently the direction that the wind was blowing at that time? Additionally, when we find a model invalidates 99% of human observations, we typically conclude that the model is wrong. I teach GIS part-time at the U of O, and I would fail any student who made a similar claim without adding additional explanation. Next, I want to turn to some additional assumptions of the applicant's odor study that need more explanation. The applicant has chosen to go with an atmospheric modeling system using weather data from Coffin Butte, Salem Airport, and Corvallis Airport. Using this data, they have made an educated guess on how air moves around the nearby area of the landfill. As the famous saying goes by a British statistician, all models are wrong, but some are useful. Models have a fundamental limitations, and they cannot and do not reflect all of the complexities of the real world. Modeling is a great tool, but it is not the entire picture, and there are many other tools in the toolbox the applicant has chosen not to deploy, including the aforementioned air monitoring. Models are a series of mathematical equations. If you change the numerical inputs or the parameters, you get different results. Choosing those inputs is not an objective decision. It is subjective to the applicant's preferences. One of the most important assumptions made by the applicant is that the facility has a 25% fugitive emissions rate. Mind you, they used to claim it was 10% before revising their numbers a year ago quietly. Recall, fugitive emissions are landfill gas emissions that are not captured by gas extraction wells and other gas controls. I want to complicate that 25% number, and planning commissioners brought up 2 important questions last session I would like to answer. What about all of the photos of holes in Coffin Butte's tarps and meticulously documented by residents? Recall, the applicant stated that they do regular surface emissions monitoring, now referenced as SEM, surface emissions monitoring, to repair these holes. This prompted the second question. Do we have results of the SEM monitoring done by the applicants? I have submitted those both for the public record as of today. First, let's look at the EPA inspection. Coffin Butte has been inspected twice by the US EPA, which uncovered over 100 violations, some of them 200 times the regulatory limit. The first time EPA inspected the landfill in 2022, Coffin Butte had done their own SEM monitoring 10 days prior, where they found and self-documented 6 leaks between 500 parts per million and 1,500. The EPA found 71 leaks between 500 parts per million and over 70,000 parts per million, and they only monitored a small portion of the landfill. They also found that the applicant had not been complying with several standard testing procedures as required by Oregon law. This is now part of your record. A similar story occurred in 2024 with 41 leaks between 500 and 118,000 parts per million. The applicant is currently under investigation for failing to meet Cleaner Act standards. Secondly, I have analyzed surface emissions monitoring reports submitted to Department of Environmental Quality by all Oregon landfills, legally required to do so. I found records that show that Coffin Butte is choosing not to monitor 56% of their landfill surface area using a legal loophole. I have attached in a report as part of my written comments. This is above average for all privately operated landfills in Oregon, which on average emit 50%. Publicly operated landfills, on the other hand, emit about 10%. Coffin Butte claims that some of their slopes are too steep or too covered in vegetation, meaning that they can't monitor them. These slopes are slopes operators designed and vegetation they have chosen not to maintain. And the legality of these exemptions are ambiguous at best or illegal at worst. We will find out what the EPA has to say. Additionally, third-party satellite flyovers have found massive plumes of landfill gas that can be observed from space from Coffin Butte. They have flown over the landfill operation 6 times over the last 2 years and found massive plumes 100% of the time. The working face where garbage is currently being deposited is a site of significant fugitive emissions. Coffin Butte claims they limit their working face to a ½ acre at any time. This is elaborated on in the Benton County Talks Trash report. I have submitted nearly a dozen random satellite images showing otherwise, and that their working face is most often between 1.5 and 2 acres, 3 to 4 times their claim. They also claim that they cover this working face with daily cover every day, and photographs from residents in the record clearly show that this is not the case. Additionally, I have used air monitoring equipment to document hydrogen sulfide levels at residential households. This is the classic rotten eggy smell we all smell in our garbage, and all residents are very familiar with. Through monitoring, we have found hydrogen sulfide levels between 250 and 500 parts per billion. This is well over the human detection threshold of 30 parts per billion. I have also worked with Linfield University students to conduct a door-to-door survey of all 500 homes in Adair Village. Of 126 households that spoke to us, we found that 60% of residents reported regularly smelling the landfill, and many were specific that the smell is distinct from the compost facility. 20% of residents reported having modified their daily activities to avoid going outside due to the smell being unbearable or concerns over being exposed to air pollutants. Remember, all models are wrong, but some are useful. The applicant's model is serving a purpose to cast doubt on hundreds of people's lived experiences. The applicant has offered no explanation for the discrepancy between their odor study results and the experience of residents. They have offered no explanation of why their gas collection system is failing and how they plan to fix it. I urge the Planning Commission to believe the residents' experience and to acknowledge the applicant's reliable record of bad behavior.
So, Mr. Levitt, in the report on last Thursday, the environmental consultant for the applicant used a unit of measure 1 over, I think it was DT. I'd have to go back and look. With your measurements of hydrogen sulfide that you took, can you compare your measurements to 1 over DT?
I can. I do not know how to do so off the top of my head, but I will be sure to follow up on that by email.
Thank you.
So I'd like to review, you said you did a survey at Adair Village and 60% reported, what did 60% report?
Regularly smelling the landfill operations.
And how many people is that about?
126 out of 500 homes. I don't know what the average household number is. We can imagine that's between 2 and 3 people per household.
And then you said 20% of respondents modify their daily routine.
Yes.
And how many people is that approximately?
20% of, oh, you're testing me on the fly. No worries. That's about 25 respondents out of the 126, and that is about 2 to 3 people per household, so between 50 and 75.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt.
Thank you.
Mr. Lemke is next with Ms.